episode of A Breath Fresh Marketing. I'm your host, Melissa Psihudakis. And today we have Dr. Adam Goodcoff. He's a charismatic resident doctor and co-founder of the Medlife, a popular series of educational videos designed to inform and inspire both medical students and enthusiasts. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Melissa. I really appreciate it.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I can't complain. It's a rainy day here in Chicago, but getting ready for a night shift and really glad to be here.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Grew up actually in upstate New York, a small town called Clifton Park, just outside of Albany, and went to undergrad there at the University of Albany, down to West Virginia. There's an osteopathic state school called WVSOM. I went to medical school there, and I now train in emergency medicine here in Chicago.
Nice. Fellow New Yorker in the house. I love that.
Love it.
On Long Island, so.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, and I have been to Albany a couple of times, right?
I'm impressed.
The biggest ball of yarn or whatever it was.
Oh, is that? I see. I didn't even know that was there. No, a lot of people write it off. Of course, north of Westchester, they don't call New York anymore. So it is still, in fact, part of the state. It is the capital. So we joke about that. And I certainly get a lot of heat from that from, my fellow friends who are from Manhattan in that area. So
yeah, nice. That's awesome. So when did you first know you wanted to pursue healthcare?
That's a good question. It was pretty early on. I get this question a lot, and I think it was sometime in high school. There's an event that I remember from time to time. There was a girl in one of my classes that I knew just kind of by passing, knew her name, but wasn't close friends. And at the time I was a lifeguard, but not necessarily formally trained in medicine. And she had passed out. And I went to a huge high school, and it was there were almost 1,000 kids in each graduating class. So the high school hallways were just like movies. I mean, tons and tons of people going both directions. And so it was like a big scene with 100 people around. And I'm like, man, what's going on? And I saw she was laying down in the middle of the circle and no one's really doing anything. And I was like, man, that doesn't feel right. I know a little bit, from being a lifeguard, I'm going to go check, obviously make sure she has a pulse. I doubt a young, healthy girl has had a cardiac arrest, but I should check on her, see what's going on, make sure she's breathing, see if there's something I can do. And of course it was just, now I know a vasovagal syncope, nothing really harmful, but I was the only person that stepped through out of a crowd of hundreds to do something. And I liked that feeling of being able to go and help and actually do something. Everyone was so paralyzed by whether lack of knowledge, fear, so on and so forth, that I was able to do something and help her out. And we actually became friends after that. And there's no crazy romantic love story at the end of it. It just was that, otherwise it really might have come out of a movie, but it was kind of the impetus for me to go on and get training in EMS. And I started to get interested in doing EMS, and I started actually in volunteer fire, and then quickly realized I did not like anything to do with fires. It's not my preferred method of helping, but it's incredible what they do. And I transitioned over into EMS and really liked that and love what EMS does, but I really had a drive for the education in medicine and, really wanted to be an emergency medicine doctor. And so I went on to medical school and here I am.
Nice. Oh, that's a pretty great story. So can you tell us a little bit about what it's like as a resident doctor?
Oh, I certainly could. That could probably be its own episode. I wish I had a fun anecdotal way to say it, but a lot of people will say it's the most fun you never want to have again. Some people will just say it's not fun, period. It's a lot of hours. So there's this tough compromise where we're tasked all of a sudden from being a learner as a medical student and someone who's there just to gather information. And you go see a patient as a medical student, you're just gathering information and bringing that back to a physician who's going to help you learn and make a decision about what to do. Day one of residency, you're a doctor and you're expected to make decisions that affect patients' lives. And of course, there's still doctors that you're working with that are overseeing your decisions and so forth, but you're a doctor and you're no longer an information gatherer. And so while that's very fun and exciting, it's incredibly stressful. And with that comes a lot of responsibility. And also with that comes the burden of knowing a lot more. And in order to do that, you need to be in the hospital seeing patients. It's just a numbers game. The more times you see something, the more comfortable you're going to be. So for example, that young girl that had a syncope, if you saw that one time, you saw it the next time, you're still going to be pretty nervous. But if you've seen 10 or 15 of those exact cases, it's going to be a lot less nerve-wracking. You're going to be more comfortable. You're going to know what to do, and you're going to know how to manage things. And so the same applies for residency. You see on TV these brutal training hours and a lot of the drama behind it. But the reality is the brutal training hours are there because we need to see that many patients to get comfortable. And no matter how much textbook information you have, you still need to learn to apply that to real patients. And the only way to do that is by actually seeing patients.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about Medlife and its purpose. Very exciting to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Medlife kind of ties into obviously everything I've done. I've been a teacher my whole life, whether that was teaching swim lessons from a young age or teaching CPR, and up through I did a teaching fellowship in medical school. And so it's always been a part of what I do. I kind of realized I actually realized in college that I was maybe not the most traditional applicant. I worked hard, but not everything was perfect on my application. And so I started a blog, and I wanted to share my experiences with people in case I didn't get in, so they could maybe learn from my mistakes as to going to medical school, this and that, applying, whatever. I obviously got in. And so it became a really helpful resource for people. And I this was back in the days of Tumblr, and people started to read this blog and realize that the information was really helpful. And that kind of prompted me to try something that was called the pre-med life. And I didn't feel like, I didn't have any experience in medicine yet. So I was like, well, let me start a YouTube channel to try and, help pre-med students basically figure out what I'd already figured out. We did it with some success, but ultimately I just didn't have time in medical school and I gave up. And sometime around my third year in medical school, I came back and had this, feeling again where I'm like, I've done all this studying. I've learned all of these tricks and tips and insider things that really everyone should know. And so I started the Medlife, which was this idea that, I would make educational content of all variety. It actually started mainly as like advisement for medical students as to, how to get through your courses, how to get through your rotations, so forth. And it really evolved from there with my career. As I started doing it, it obviously gained traction, and we expanded to Instagram and later to TikTok. It gained a ton of momentum and size. And with that, we kind of shifted the focuses and realized we can educate a lot more people than just medical students. And while that was, my first love, my first desire in doing all of this, I realized I have a gift of education or being able to teach people things. And there's a lot of people all around the world that want to learn about medicine at both the provider level and just at the surface level of I'm interested. What is this stuff? And so we've kind of been able to diversify content across all of our platforms to reach, nurses, respiratory therapists, paramedics, all the way up to, training ER doctors, in my position, and physician assistants and nurse practitioners. And so we really cover a broad spectrum. It's for anyone who's interested. And sometimes it's just fun to, for medical providers, maybe they're like, oh, I already know this procedure. It's just fun to watch it and to see someone else do it and see it on a model. So we've had a lot of success in the demonstration, and we've recently expanded to a new YouTube channel. And it's also, based off of all our socials that we currently have called You Be the Doctor. And it's this simulation case-based education. And it's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, is that you need to see things multiple times over. And this idea came during the pandemic when nobody was getting appropriate medical education because, number one, the only patients we were seeing were COVID patients. And while it's great to help them out, we have to learn about everything because, as you're seeing, at some point, the pandemic is going to quote unquote end, and normal patients are going to return with normal complaints. And we're not going to know how to treat them because we haven't been seeing that. So what I did to kind of keep myself fresh and help, train future generations or start to learn the basics is to start these simulation cases. And we host them on the Instagram stories for kind of a brief overview. We'll do sometimes short version simulations on TikTok or Instagram Live, and then the full version on YouTube. And so that's kind of allowed students and learners from all around the world to get exposure to medicine, to see if it's something they like, and to maybe test their knowledge a little bit too.
That's awesome. Did you ever anticipate amassing over 1.5 million followers on social media?
Never. Yeah, I can still remember, this was during the lockdown, sitting in my parents' house and hitting 100,000. And I know the video off the top of my head. Anytime you do this type of social media or anything like this, and this space, it grows so fast, your style changes so quickly. And I remember it used to take me 1 or 2 hours to make a TikTok video back then. And now, it takes me 20, 30 minutes. I know exactly what I need to do to make that video hit. But I remember freaking out, waiting for it to hit 100K. And it was kind of this like sad, happy, depressing celebration where it's just like my adult self and my adult parents just being like, woo, 100,000, that's wild, And I just remember saying, I can't believe there's 100,000 people that want to see what I do. And we made this video with like stop motion animation with scrubs that came into the 100K. And it's still up on TikTok. And that was a really special video to me, just as special as hitting the 1 million was. And, we're coming around now again and really coming up on the 2 million follower mark for across all social media. And it's hard to wrap my head around. But, to kind of fight imposter syndrome, if you will, I just remember why we started it, to educate people, to show people medicine, to get them excited about this stuff. And it's really inspiring to see that people are enjoying that, sharing that with their friends, and that they're choosing to follow me.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, congrats on that. It's
Thank you.
not easy to do. So what kind of content is your favorite to produce between your TikTok videos and the longer YouTube recordings? Which one essentially do you prefer, and which subjects do you prefer talking about specifically?
So as you're probably figuring out, I can be a long-winded person, and I tend to like filming the YouTube videos more, actually, because I think they're just more thorough. I can say everything that I want to say and everything that I want to get across, and as many examples and analogies and visual demonstrations and whatever I feel like I need to do, I can get it in that time frame. And I think one of the appealing things about TikTok and Instagram Reels is that it's really challenging the creator to say, not only get and hold someone's attention, but convey something useful in such a short amount of time. So you really do need to amass a certain amount of content and knowledge into this short block.
Right.
Because if you make a meaningless, TikTok in its early days had some content that was just questionable, that went ridiculously viral for no real reason. But that algorithm is refining, the Instagram Reels algorithm is refining, and most of the stuff now that does well consistently, it does well for a reason. And it's because you're teaching someone something. Those are the highest value pieces of content out on the internet right now are how-tos. In some way, shape, or form, somebody gains something from your content. And doing that in 15 seconds or 30 seconds is really challenging. And then balancing, again, the expectations on a short form app where people are expecting to have a quick hit of that serotonin, that feel good from whatever piece of content, but also giving education. It's really challenging. So I think it's easier and I'm more comfortable with the long form. But as I'm sure you've seen, we do a lot less long form now and more of the live simulations and obviously a lot of short form content.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about your app, the Medlife Live app.
Sure. Yeah. So this app was born out of desire to make our simulations better. We were doing sims with the old version of that app called Simple Patient Monitor, and very grateful to Dr. George out of, I think he's in just outside of London, who had originally made that app. And I was holding my phone and videoing, myself in the live and then flipping it around and showing him the monitor and flipping it back to me. It was tough. The interface on TikTok was originally very clunky, and that's where we did the original Sims. And we kept thinking, man, it would be great if we had better control over this monitor. And what would be even better is if we could bring students into this rather than just telling them like, okay, we're live, come watch me flip my phone back and forth. What if they could have the app on their screen and I could ask them questions in the app? And so we started to build this app, and it's kind of continually evolved, is still evolving as to what it can do. But we took what existed as basically a patient sim and a patient sim monitor and made it better and added medications, added functionality to it. And we added a live component to where users can come into the app and see my screen on their iPad or iPhone. And they can, help participate and vote on what's the next intervention. So it's an interactive way to do the simulations at home. And obviously we use it in the short form content for all of our simulation stuff. In the long form, it is the simulation, and we kind of use it in a streamer format where the screen is broken up. And then, we do occasionally do the live sessions where students can come and actually be a part of the app itself and vote on treatment plans.
Nice. That's pretty cool. So medical content has always been very popular on TV, and most notably through those medically themed TV shows. Do you have a favorite? I can think of some off the top of my head. ER,
Sure.
Grey's Anatomy, Chicago Hope. There's a bunch of them, right? That kind of
Yeah.
fall in
Oh,
that.
there's a ton. I think the idea of medical drama has been around in popular entertainment for years. I don't think it's going anywhere. There's an allure to having the ability to save someone's life, and to do that on TV and be attractive and have these relationships and drama. And it just makes for great TV. So it's always going to be there. I don't personally watch any of the shows that have, a lot of the drama. I think in high school, I try to remember. I know. So my mom and I used to watch Chicago Fire when it first came out, and it had
Chicago Fire. Yeah.
yeah, and it had a lot of EMS in it. So at the time, it was relevant, and like my mom really enjoys those kind of shows, so it was like a nice thing we could do to bond. Um, yeah, and then occasionally I would watch like House, which to this day, yeah, House holds its own. I've done some reacts videos and things. I mean, it's silly in its own right, just like anything. But whoever they have doing the advising on that show is far superior, in my opinion, to the other shows. It is very medically accurate. The conditions that they're diagnosing are real. They're actually rare. The way that they find the diagnosis is usually ridiculous, but it is still interesting with some of the cases they bring up, and that they'll show the symptoms or the physical exam findings. So I would say that's probably the most accurate that I've seen.
And look, I'm no doctor, but I watched Hugh Laurie on those seasons, and I really enjoyed House. And I always noticed that they got really in depth with medical terminology, and it seemed legit. And then I'm thinking it has to be real, because they would make up something about some kind of like rare tumor or something, right? Like it has to be real that they're
Right.
talking about in the writing.
Sure.
So I thought that was pretty cool. But that's neat.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your co-founder, Josh?
Absolutely. So Josh is a great friend of mine that I grew up with. And Josh has done a whole bunch of jobs, used to work for Apple, but he's always been a big supporter of what I've done, and a huge guy behind the scenes to help me out. And he really never got the credit he deserved until kind of lately, that we've really started to reach success. And he's always edited my YouTube videos, always kind of given me advice. And I maintain that he, is one of the key people that pushed me to go to Instagram. So originally I was really set on doing YouTube. And I remember having a discussion. I was sitting outside one day at medical school, and he said, "You really got to get on Instagram. Like Dr. Mike is on there, and I think you need an Instagram." And at the time, I had deleted my personal Instagram. And so, he really pushed me back towards Instagram to do that. And, he has continued to kind of support me along the way. And so it was nice when we got to a point where I could bring him on as a manager and a full-time component of what we do as a video editor, to come full circle and kind of have him doing what he loves to do, which is edit videos and be a part of kind of YouTube and entertainment and social media, and have that go towards making our business even better. So it's all the better that, we grew up as best friends right down the street from each other. And it's been really nice to have him, behind the scenes, and now getting a little more recognition too.
Yeah, that's great. So how do you envision the Medlife over the next few years to come? Do you have any long-term goals for yourself in mind?
Yeah, this is like a moving target. And I think this is kind of one of the things that's hard for me to wrap my head around with social media is, I am a big goal-oriented person. I think a lot of folks in medicine and in general, people that, are considered high achievers are very goal-oriented. And so I'll set goals, I'll set numeric goals. And it's so hard to predict these things, because you'll have one goal that you set and you're like, man, by 2022, for example, it's happened now. I feel comfortable sharing it. I was like, I would love to have 100,000 followers on Instagram. That would blow my mind if we could get there. And that was a huge reach goal. And we're there, and it's not even the summer. It's just officially the summer now. And so it's constant reevaluation and constant reminders, truly, to not get lost in the follower count. It's fun to have a lot of followers, and it's fun to chase numbers. But at the end of the day, these are people that I'm helping, providing a service. And sometimes we have to come back and have a meeting and sit down and just be like, what is our real focus this month? Like, what are we bringing to people, and how are we going to do that better? And I think the clear answer for us right now is these simulation cases, simulations on models and mannequins. And we're starting to, I don't want to give too much away, but we're starting to look into expanding some of our simulation-based content for education. Those videos do very well. And it's not just they get a lot of views, but they're getting a lot of engagement and interactions and questions, and students and providers and people from around the world that are asking, hey, I had this done. Could I see what this is? Or what's this look like? Or how would this happen? And so teaching by visualization is a great opportunity on these apps. So
Yeah.
we're looking to expand some of that. It's a process that's a little bit difficult because the medical training world has a lot of grant money, which is similarly, in my opinion, skewed the marketplace, just like health insurance has skewed the call. A Band-Aid in the ER is like $100. It's not, but they have to bargain with the insurance company. And so I theorize that the same goes for medical models, where there are these, very high barrier to entry costs to get a model, because it's not something that even, with the small amount of money we make from social media, that we can afford. So we're working on some things, trying to get some ideas together to get some of these things. But, I'm sure you've seen news articles, like, for example, a full simulation man that, plugs into a monitor. I mean, they can be upwards of $200,000. So, we're doing what we can, but we're really excited about some of the stuff that's coming. And that's where the Medlife app comes in, and kind of bridging that gap and making something affordable for everyone to use. And we're continually refining that. And I think where we're going is, like I said, expanding on those simulations and on the education that we're offering in the video form, and, potentially now a little bit more in the long form too.
Great. And what are the takeaway messages you think, or if there's one message in particular that you have to any audience members that are inspired by your content and interested in pursuing a career in healthcare themselves? What would you say to them?
So I think it's cliche, but it's just put your mind to it. And anything that you put your mind to, you may not, like, I can't go out and say, if you want to be an astronaut, put your mind to it, you're going to be an astronaut. I mean, you got to be realistic with the numbers. So I think it's be realistic, put your mind to a goal and be realistic. And so, effective goal setting, and there's a million people that could talk about this better than I can, but setting realistic goals, setting numerical goals, things that you can actually achieve and monitor your progress. And then the other big component, in my opinion, to achieving, a goal like medicine or anything like that, something that's a delayed gratification that takes multiple steps, is self-reflection. And I think it's something that we certainly don't teach in school, and it's difficult to have a mentor that can really get you to that place where you can self-reflect. But to sit down after a week and say, hey, this is what I did really well this week, but I really missed on these goals, and I can do better on this. I know what I have to offer, and this wasn't it. And evaluating, your emotional intelligence too, and saying, hey, today was a really bad day at work, and I'm just not going to produce high quality work. I need to take the night off. And even if that puts me behind on my goals as a whole, that's going to do better for me as a person. And medicine, or any of these long-term goals, are a marathon. They're not a sprint. And again, it's not as much cliche. It's just, it is what it is. These things take so much work to get there. So it's constantly a reminder to self-evaluate and to just keep plugging away. Put your head down, keep working, and you'll be surprised when you finally come up for air, kind of how far you've made it.
Well, that's great advice. I think a lot of people can learn a lot from that advice. So how can everyone find you on social media? What are your handles?
Absolutely. So it's at See the Medlife on Instagram, on TikTok as well, and YouTube. We have a kind of diverse offering. So there's The Medlife, which is our original YouTube channel, and our new channel, which we're super excited about, is You Be the Doctor. That one's still tough to search, but it occasionally pops up on my Instagram stories, so you can find it that way too. And that'll be more of those educational case-based series.
Awesome. Dr. Adam Goodcoff, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate everything that you're doing. And it's lovely to see what you're putting out there content-wise and helping people every day. So thank you for that. And
Melissa, appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope to see some new exciting content coming down the pipeline. I'll be looking for that. So very exciting. And thank you all to our listeners for tuning in for another version of A Breath Fresh Marketing. Stay healthy and be well. Thanks.